Some family stories affect more than just one family. They impact the entire world. I'm Linda Satgas with FamilyHistoryHero.com, and this is part two of my interview with Thomas Allen Harris, host of the PBS television series called Family Pictures USA. Today, we're going to hear about someone in Thomas's family who helped change the course of history. I want to hear how you got going from like your family stories, then going to other people's stories, like collecting other family narratives. What was the epiphany that got you in that spot?
Well, I come from a family of photographers and a family of archivists and a family of storytellers and a family of activists. And so my stepdad was part of the African National Congress. He was part of the anti-apartheid, left South Africa to come to America to turn what was a local movement into an international movement, and that was the anti-apartheid movement. So when he joined our family, I got to see like this thing grow, and the freedom of South Africa. And when he and my mom moved back to South Africa, he, they I kind of I didn't visit them because they would come back every year. But he died in South Africa 5 years after he moved back. And I went to South Africa, and for the first time I realized that this man who I had a difficult relationship with, because I was like, you're not my dad, and I'm an American kid, he's African, old country, and very strict. And I realized that even though I'd been thinking he was thinking he was my stepdad, in my heart, he was my dad. And in Black South Africa, that was the case as well. There's no such thing as step, culturally. He's seen as my dad, and I was seen as his son who just lost a dad. And so I realized that in that trip to his funeral that I needed to make a film, a story about his journey and the journey of the 11 other guys he left with. And so my dad's mission was to help free South Africa, and he wanted to do that through media. And so he was an archivist, he worked with the United Nations. And so I took all of his archives back to South Africa and introduced them to these young South Africans. And
Wow.
they didn't know anything about the story. Because of apartheid, they kept the information from coming into the country. And so I introduced them to the story and asked them to perform the story using the photographs, and so that it became kind of their story, but also my story in terms of a son's reconciliation, with the dad, across the boundary of life and death. And so it was very much a kind of a community storytelling process and project. And from there, I started working on another film called Through a Lens Darkly. It was a film that was commissioned by public television, looking at the image of African Americans within the American family album. And as I was making this film, which initially was based on a book about Black photographers by my colleague, Deborah Willis, who was the author of a book called Reflections in Black, I decided to make a kind of community engagement project that ran alongside it, in which I would talk with people about their family archives and really get them to rethink the importance of them. Part of it was because I knew that I wanted to engage a larger community. And part of it was because in the storytelling, and part of it was because there was before the 50s and 60s, a lot of museums and libraries did not collect the work of Black photographers, during the time of segregation. So there was, the place where these archives were based were actually in family albums. All those studio photographs are are made by someone who had a craft and, who had a name, and during that time they would sell their name. If you look at the bottom of the photograph that was taken in the studio, you'll know what studio it is. And I think I saw a couple of those in your family of photographs.
Yes.
So that actually got us started on a project, the precursor to Family Pictures USA. We started doing this at a time when a lot of people did not have their photographs scanned. This is back in
Wow.
2009 and 10. And so I would tell them, if you have a box of images or a trunk load of images, if you want to just scan a selection that tell a story, 15 images that tell a story, that's a manageable way to begin to crack open that archive and digitize it. And so all of a sudden, Family Pictures was born out of that,
Wow.
and then after working with that, we traveled over 70 cities, and then we decided to turn it into a television series.
When did you make that decision? I mean, you must have had a aha moment at some point when you knew you were on the right path with this project. What sticks out in your mind from that?
Well, it happened gradually. I mean, I finished Through a Lens Darkly, which is also available online. You could see it on Canopy, iTunes. We started after that film was finished, and what happened was, it's when you're working with public television, it's not very easy to get a new series on. There's Ken Burns, there's Skip Gates, but they're not that many, so it's especially as an independent. And so we had a bunch of funders start coming together, and we did all these planning meetings, and the turning point was when the Corporation for Public Broadcasting came to us after 2016, and they said, well, we're looking to do something that would be equally attractive for people who are in rural communities as well as urban communities. We really want to get to rural communities who might not feel as served by public TV. And they said, your platform is something that, regardless of the political alignment one has, is a source of commonality, and we think this could be
Absolutely.
something good. And so they gave us our huge grant, and they came on board, and then other entities started coming on board. PBS came on board, and so it was in the course of a little over 3 years of development.
Wow. Wow. It's like it was an idea whose time had come, right?
Hmm.
When you have the idea, but then you know that other people say, yes, that's a good idea, let's run with it, then you really know that you have something that's going to touch people. So that's great. This has been part 2 of my interview with Thomas Allen Harris, host of the Family Pictures USA PBS television series. To watch the original Family Pictures USA series, click on the link below this video. Coming up next in part 3, you'll learn how one family changed the course of Florida history and discover how DNA brought two families with a surprising connection together. This is Linda Satgas with FamilyHistoryHero.com, where we show you how to turn all those dusty old boxes of photos into easy to share family stories.